Today's episode of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast is brought to you by King Arthur Clocks and Jewelry, Bavarian Grill, and Ye Olde Butcher Shop. King Arthur Clocks and Jewelry, a longtime retail and repair shop for, you guessed it, clocks and jewelry. Everything from grandfather clocks to mantle clocks, wall clocks. Hey, if you just need to get the battery in your watch replaced, King Arthur Clocks and Jewelry has you covered. Not only that, they are also a gold and silver exchange. So if you have any gold coins, silver coins that you're looking to trade in for cash on the spot, King Arthur Clocks and Jewelry has you covered there as well. They are located at 1201 North Central Expressway, having served Plano for over 30 years. King Arthur Clocks and Jewelry. And now, let's podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor with Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Justin Thomas, sports editor for our Denton County papers, as well as Kendrick Johnson, sports editor for the McKinney Courier-Gazette. And gentlemen, let's answer a couple more questions. Just like we did last week, we're going to throw out two more questions from our summer question series for this week. Just kind of bring them to the open air and just see what kind of discussion we can have about them. Today's topics, two things that are a bit more kind of entrenched in just kind of the lore of high school athletics, student sections, and rivalries. Let's start with student sections. So the way the question is framed for the piece this week is simply which school boasts the best student section in each of our respective districts. You can kind of go a bunch of different ways as far as what makes a standout student section, but at least at first glance, Justin, when you think of your Lewisville ISD district and Capel out in 6XA, what kind of are there any student sections that kind of jump off the page that you're looking forward to this coming school year?
I think the one that kind of sticks out to me the most is over at Capel.
Okay.
Football-wise, they usually always have big crowds generally, but the student section's always pretty fun. They're the one that typically comes up with, you'll see more signs there, it seems like, stuff like that. They do their thing where they all throw up the dust at the start of the game.
Powder, yeah.
The powder, which is really cool. So they always seem to have good crowds there and stuff for football, and then they always, for basketball at least, they usually have some kind of gimmick or something going on. Like, for instance, this past year I covered a game against Jesuit, and Jesuit had a couple people that were out when that flu bug was going around, so a bunch of Capel student section, they all came to the game wearing the masks and stuff. So
I like that.
I got to kick out
That's
that.
good.
So, yeah, they seem to have little gimmicks and kind of maybe do a little more research to try to get under the skin of their opponent and stuff like that. So that's what kind of jumps out to me there.
I think one of the things that really does make a good student section is the bits.
Yeah.
The student section that's willing to go beyond just the chants and really does kind of have a gimmick, so to speak.
You can get a "We Believe" chant anywhere, but when you're doing some research,
they need to retire the "We Believe" chant.
Still blame Marcus basketball for that, but
anyway. With you talk about just like student sections that have bits and gimmicks. And Kendrick, you can speak to this because McKinney High actually developed a bit of a reputation for a bit that they did with a couple of their students recently.
Yeah, they have they have like a hierarchy, like the seniors this year pick who's gonna be next year's coming up, senior leaders and everything. It's like Boyd does the same thing. It's like I would give the edge to Red Nation over Lion Nation for one little fact. I ain't never seen nobody packed out for a soccer game in a regional 5 hours away. They were like had a bus just for the Red Nation people for a soccer regional. I never seen that at any sport, but Red Nation and Lion Nation, you can't help but to see what they're gonna do next. And like I'm talking about, they know like who you're dating and everything, like during volleyball.
Oh yeah.
And then the crazy thing during volleyball, one of the key players was dating one of the head people of Lion Nation. So it was like, he's like vocal, yeah, such and such, and then his girl hits the ball.
One other bit that McKinney High does, I don't know if I didn't get to cover too many home games for McKinney High last year, but the MHS ESPN.
Oh yeah, I can't even get a follow. I'm holding Jake Smith accountable. They like have a hierarchy on that, like who's runs the Twitter and everything is like from stuff that we do on them to negative stuff somebody do. Like they have that article, MHS, let's represent, let them know what Lion Nation's all about.
Because what it is they have, like, McKinney High has a couple students who basically, it's like a mock ESPN booth.
I think I've seen it.
Where they have a couple students.
They do it this year at the games, but last year they did. And it's usually like high-profile athletes. It's not like just like regular students. It's like guys that were like starting pitcher, but during basketball season, he's like the lead guy. And the guy that's like one of the key players in the basketball, he's at the baseball games because it's not his season. But it's they definitely have a fluid system over there.
I actually just saw, I'm looking at the MHS ESPN Twitter account, and as of 2 days ago, they just tweeted out that apparently the founders of MHS ESPN have now graduated. So they're about to usher in a new era in this.
What I just tell you?
And they've actually just, it says right here, is with great honor that Ryan Hallstrom will now take the reins. So they've already named the successor.
I told you. Y'all thought it was being funny. I told you. Yeah, I didn't know who it was, but I know that and it's like a legit vote and all that stuff. It's not like, hey, we're picking him. Like it's like 6 to 10 people that get together and they make a vote, which is kind of crazy.
As far as the best student sections, like in the district that Kendrick, you and I are going to cover quite a bit in the coming year, 9-6A, which is the Plano ISD, Allen, McKinney ISD.
Well, they student section that just because of the sheer humanity of people.
But here's the thing. But I think Jesuit is probably going to be pound for pound the best student section to look forward to.
That was males though, so they don't have no boundaries. Like ladies kind of have to stay within the lines, where guys don't. So they kind of have a built-in advantage. With
Jesuit, they have I don't know how many actual bits that they do, like you had mentioned with what Capel does, but what they do, I mean, it's a student section that they, there's a lot of quantity. Students always turn out in big numbers for just about all of their home games, and they've got just the creativity and some of the chants. Of the times that I've seen their boys basketball team play, they'll actually chant the actions during a basketball game. They will chant dribble, dribble, dribble as the opposing team is bringing the ball up the court. They'll chant pass as he dashes it off, and just stuff like that. And obviously that has to screw with the psyche of the opposing team. Just little bits like that. And one thing you had mentioned, when Boyd showed out really strong to a soccer game. This is how the Jesuit students
5 hours away. That's the key. It wasn't like it was like they played in Arlington. They were in Midland, and they had a bus just for Red Nation.
I was out covering Allen's holiday tournament. Jesuit had a cluster of students there for a random pool play game at a winter tournament. That right there is dedication. That's how you've got you've got some support from your student body. What do you guys think? I mean, one of the student sections I think are one of the most compelling subplots, in covering high school athletics. They just make the atmosphere just that much more special. You can't replicate that at other levels because the games are just so I think basketball is the sport that really kind of helps get it across the best because everything's just so kind of condensed and closed in. And
the other thing about basketball is sometimes the configuration of the arena can really make a difference. If you're at a stadium where it's just two sides and the student section is just one little area and it goes all the way back, but when you're at a gym like Capel or Lewisville has, where the students can actually get behind the basket and then they have the signs that are disorienting when people are shooting free throws with big fat heads and stuff like that. It just seems to make a difference that when they're kind of right up on the action and right behind the game there.
What do you guys think just goes into making a good student section?
Consistency. The coordination, Boyd, I think McKinney, I didn't see it last year covering it, but I know Boyd has that different shirt for every sport with their Red Nation. But McKinney was right on point, and it's not we believe we will win stuff. It was very specific for that team. And then just the depth, I like the McKinney has the guy that may not be playing in their basketball season. He's the pitcher, so he's doing his thing. So when he's pitching, the guy that's one of the key basketball players and football players are at their game. They all work together. And then Boyd, though, a lot of theirs are just straight students. If you go to the Red Nation website, but on Twitter, it says the home of future CEOs, doctors, and lawyers.
The consistency thing is big because, obviously it's very tough for any student body to adhere to this, but don't just show out when the team's good. Be there all across the board. You're fans. Be there through the ups and the downs. That's what part of being a sports fan is. Because I was just thinking of some of the more infamous student sections that I've seen in my time, like covering Plano ISD, and back when unfortunately, what I just said, like a lot of those best student sections coincided when teams like Plano West, Plano East were at their best over a certain point of time. But I was just thinking back, what are some of like the best student sections you guys have seen, whether it was for a specific team or a specific stretch in time?
Ever?
Yeah. Just
I grew up in the Garland district, and I was South Garland, so I got more treatment in South Garland High School than I did playing D1. The closest thing in college is we played at University, we played Oklahoma State, and like they're like Gallagher Barina, they're like right there, they can touch you. Other than that, South Garland High School was the most intense atmosphere I was in, college or high school.
Interesting. What was it? Do you remember much about that? The atmosphere at South Garland and what made it so hostile?
Like they found like a nickname and stuff. This is pre-Twitter and stuff. I know I'm dating my stuff. They have a nickname. You come in, or if something happened, like one of my guys checked in. You know how you have to have the matching T-shirt. This was our junior year, and he comes in with the T-shirt, but it didn't match. So every time he touched the ball, when he came over there, T-shirt, like they were on point. But I still am impressed from Boyd, because it doesn't matter if it's football. Like you say, everybody has football. I've never seen people have cheer sections in soccer. And they're like the whole boys playoff round. They were there for soccer.
That's how you know they're devoted. Yeah, when you're showing love, not just basketball, football, but the more the sports that don't get as much love from the rest of the student body.
Yeah. The one that kind of jumps out to me was following the Lewisville softball team that won the state title a few years ago, and they had a pretty active student section. They would all different things, like 2 strikes. They would all like shoot arrows at the batter and stuff, just little gimmicks like that, just chants and stuff like that. So they had a real fun time with it, and they showed out real well at the state tournament that year too, and took over down in Austin.
Even though they might have ruined the "We Believe" chant, Marcus still did have some pretty good student sections back during the Marcus Smart, Phil Forte.
Just the "We Believe" chant is that's when that chant ever entered my consciousness. Was when Marcus basketball was on their run, and that chant would be going on, and I don't know, it just kind of got into me.
It's over you.
That wasn't the golden age for you.
You guys are up by 10. The best team. You better believe you're going to win.
I remember covering a playoff game between Plano East and Richardson boys basketball, and I was sitting right behind the Richardson student section, or in front of, I should say, and I swear that they broke out the "We Believe" chant about 6 times over the course of the game. And I just, I know you're more creative than that. There's so many, I mean, they were really loud, they were really vocal, but that was the only chant that they knew for that game, apparently. And they lost that game, unfortunately, so it was all for naught.
But they believed, so
they believed. That could, they will win. Thinking of just some of the more notable student sections I've seen. Speaking of Plano East, they're at least one of the ones that does have a when their section has been at its best, they actually have a nickname for the section, and it's not the normal mascot nation or whatnot. They call themselves the Jungle, as the Panthers. So it's you can see the tie there. But what they would do, I always was fascinated the different bits that they would do during pregame intros. One I've seen them. There were times when they would everybody in the student section would have newspapers. And then during the other teams, intros, you would have an entire third of the stands with newspapers held up against their faces.
South Garland did that. When they call our names out, they'd be like this.
The best one I've seen, though, was...
I like that better than just the back turn.
How about this one? When Plano East, when the other team was being introduced, there were times when the Plano East student section would pretend that they were all asleep. They would all just fall back on the bleachers. They would be draped across as if they were all collectively passed out. And then once they were done introducing the other team, and then the second they started introducing East, the players all simultaneously just erupt and just start jumping around, and it was just they just start going bonkers and just going from 0 to 60 just like that. I thought that was a really nice
Not
touch.
100.
And then Plano West boys basketball during their super team run and their
super team.
During
I'm talking about the one on the Tyler and
the Tyler Davis, DJ Hogue, Mickey Mitchell, Super Friends, and Soso Jamabo, of course. Just that era where Plano West student sections were just they called themselves I told you Plano East used to call themselves the Jungle. Plano West called themselves the Hype. because of all the because of all of just the bluster surrounding that team, and they had the I believe the hype chant that was their go-to. But what they would that was just as far as just sheer like action. I mean, it was like you were watching the game, but you couldn't help but just be entranced by just what was going on in the stands at the same time. When it was, I mean, they had like students waving flags. They had the giant cutout heads.
Boyd has an impressive Red Nation flag that's specific for Red Nation. It's kind of like the mascot and the American flag combined, but it's a Red Nation flag, and it goes in and outdoors. I've seen it in football, I've seen it at basketball, so that's pretty impressive. They have the Red Nation flag that get to waving when they make a run.
Plano West had a during that same student section, they had like this bit where they would part the Red Sea with one of those flags and have like some guy with one like just sprinting up and down the stands with just some bit that they would do at halftime or whatever. Then they also, as far as pregame intros go, I always loved the bit that they used to do with Soso Jamabo, who was always the last player that was introduced. Yeah. And what he would do is after they announced his name, he would go and run over to the student section about 20 feet away from them. He would throw a punch at the air, and then the entire student section would just fall back as if they all just got collectively knocked out by the punch. Just a cool little bit like that. So, and you mentioned just kind of like South Garland, their student section kind of being on the edge of the court and just all that, and like just how hostile that can make it. Before we got over here, I was thinking back to a game between Plano East and Plano Senior boys basketball back in 2013, where it was at Plano, and it was one of those rivalry games where both teams showed out pretty well student-wise. Plano East had a chance to put the game away with inside like the final couple seconds. There was a turnover. Plano East Jarvis Pugh, I want to say it was, had a breakaway dunk, gets intentionally fouled as he's going up for the dunk, misses it, and because of the nature of the foul, both teams were asked to leave the court. So you just have Jarvis Pugh taking free throws with 0.9 seconds left in the game.
What was the score?
It was, I believe it was tied at this time. It was tied.
So he had 4 free throws?
He was, I think they just gave him 2. He was just given 2. But so what happened is when both teams had to leave the court, the Plano student section, they left the stands and they surrounded the court and were just screaming at this poor kid as he was trying to win the game from the free throw line. He missed the first and then made the second. But yeah, just little moments like that kind of encapsulate just how the student section can just really add that extra dynamic to a game in a really pivotal moment. So that's a look at student sections. Love them. Love a good student section. They make the games all the more exciting to cover.
Do any of y'all student sections move throughout the game? Like, do your volleyball teams like switch sides with the teams?
I've seen that happen before. Yeah, I've seen that happen. It happens, and you kind of have to, and that's because volleyball is one of those unique sports where you don't play on the same side of the court all the way through. So we'll pick this up in a few moments. Going to look at some rivalries and just kind of the nature of the high school football rivalry, sports rivalry, I should say. After a word from the sponsor. Today's Student Athlete Spotlight is brought to you by Bavarian Grill, authentic Bavarian food and beer garden. Listed by the Zagat survey as the highest rated German restaurant in Texas for 12 years in a row. 12 years! That's 3 presidential terms. You can enjoy traditional and authentic spring favorites now. Everything from appetizers like slow roasted ham hock and potato pancakes to entrees like bratwurst or breaded schnitzel. Bring your whole family for lunch and dinner. They are open Tuesday through Saturday, located off Parker and Highway 75 in Plano. Bavarian Grill. And now, let's get back to the podcast. And we're going to pick things back up as we look at another entry in our summer question series. The question here is simple. Are there any new potential rivalries that could emerge within our new districts for the coming year? So obviously with the reconfiguration of these districts, you get some teams that are going to be brand new district opponents across the board. You're going to have some schools like in your district, Justin, rekindling some old rivalries. Yeah. Are there any kind of jump out off the page as far as like rivalries that you're kind of looking forward to in any of your districts?
Well, like you mentioned, kind of with some of the markets I cover, it really is just kind of a renewal. You have the Colony, and they're pocketed with Little Elm, their natural rival again. But now they're in football. They're back with the Frisco schools where they previous to these last 2 years, they had spent 4 years with those Frisco schools, so they're more than accustomed to each other. And it's kind of the same thing with Coppell. The Lewisville schools always stick together, so you have your mountain showdowns and your X games. But now Coppell's back with the Lewisville schools, and during an 8-year stretch from 2006 to 2013, they were with the Lewisville schools for 6 of those years. So those, I know the players are new, but the fans and stuff like that are more than accustomed to each other. So it should be interesting to see how those kind of break down. And then I'm interested to see how Coppell and Irving soccer get after it this year, after both making the state tournament last year.
with Capel, I mean those like them and Marcus on the baseball diamond. I mean, that's in any of just about any of those football matchups, whether it's Capel, Hebron, or whatnot. I mean, there's so much potential for some really, really great action there. With Kendrick, what do you any specific rivalries that kind of jump off the page that you're looking forward to?
Crosstown Showdown.
Crosstown.
There's going to be the interesting dynamic is this year McKinney gets to play both North and Boyd because of the new stadium and everything. So that's going to be interesting. That'll be my first time to see on the football field. I know they played before. How that one is, but Crosstown Showdown, anything can happen. Like last year when Boyd beat McKinney for the 9th time in a row, I swear it was like Friday Night Lights. Like the last play, gotta get stuffed at the half-inch line. I think it was Play Wyatt and I think Brett Massick took him down like this close. It was the craziest scene ever because you got the Boyd people going crazy and crying because they kept the streak alive. Like on this side, the McKinney people are throwing helmets and stuff. But in the big picture, the McKinney people McKinney was going to the playoffs and Boyd wasn't. So it was like a very surreal scene. Like,
and that could have weighed on the decision to on how they approached that.
Yeah,
final.
But like the coaches and stuff, like, hey, we're going to the playoffs. Let's do this. We got the big goal, and they like thinking like right there. So that was very odd because the team that was going to the playoffs was crying, and the team that wasn't going to the playoffs was like super excited. So I had never seen that scene before, but like just the intenseness of that game, like you know how you see in college, like, oh, they thought the Winkers win. You got to text you.
That's right.
Like you literally do that when Boyd and McKinney played. Last year, there's a kid on the team that caught 2 touchdowns in that game. And I think I saw him catch 2 passes in the 2 years I covered him. And that was like his career game. I looked in the thing, he had 5 catches in that game. He had 7 the whole season. And this is the final game of the season. So it's like he showed up and showed out at Crosstown Showdown. So you got people that get up for these games. Even in volleyball, last year, McKinney wasn't as talented as Boyd across the board, but they beat them at McKinney, and that one game cost Boyd from going. It ended Boyd's like 10-year playoff streak.
Wow.
So even in like sports that are not as hyped, it goes on. It's every game, and you throw out the records when Boyd and McKinney play.
I think as far as any potential new district rivalries that could emerge, I think there's more potential for Prosper to develop some more long-standing rivalries, just because it seems like, at least like looking at 9-6A, that Jesuits probably just going to be around for these 2 years, and then if with word that McKinney North is going to make the move to 6A, it would just make sense if we're just going to look ahead.
Have you heard that the Colony may move up too in the next environment?
No, I've been looking too far ahead.
But with Prosper, I think there's a chance that they could be sticking around the Plano Allen McKinney district for quite some time, and I'm anxious to see. I think of all these sports that Prosper, I think, should be able to ease into and acclimate themselves the best. I think volleyball is a good spot to start. Defending state champions, they return 70% of their roster. And I actually went back and checked just to see if there's any recent history between them and the rest of that district. And granted, it was just in tournament matches, so it's just 3 sets early in the season, so teams are still kind of ironing out their rotations. But it is worth noting that Prosper does have a 5-2 record versus Allen and Plano ISD since 2015. So they've held up already.
I think they beat Boyd last year and they lost to them the year before.
Yeah, I think in that same I forgot how far back it dates, but they were at least MaxCorp had them listed as 1-3 against Boyd. So yeah, I mean, there's at least a chance for Prosper to be able to make some headway and potentially forge some pretty competitive athletics against.
I think girls wise, I think they match up good. Guys, it's going to be a different beast because it's like they went from being the biggest. I won't call them the bullies, but the biggest dude on the block to they just another face at 6'6". They definitely can compete. I think they have more of a chance than Wiley and McKinney had, and we saw what they did in the first year because nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, for sure. What do you guys think makes just a great rivalry? I mean, you see these rivalries all year long. Just in your time covering these schools, just
intenseness, 365. People are already talking about Crosstown Showdown for the game. It's like they just skip the regular season and want to go to the last week, and that and the fact that people will bring up a record, for instance, McKinney has beaten Boyd in other sports. Not much like this past year when they beat him. They beat him in basketball. They swept Boyd in basketball. Boy, people, 38-14. That's right. And like the McKinney had all these chances, 38-14, and just boom. Now it's 9 years in a row. So it's like everything is paramount around football. At the end of the day, it's all the it goes back and forth. But it's like if you control the football rivalry, you kind of have a leg up. Is that what you've seen, Justin?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously proximity is a big player.
Oh yeah, and that helps too in high school sports, just because these teams. It's almost like you have to be around.
Like kids like with the middle school together and stuff, were on the same team, and now they're playing against each other.
And a lot of these schools too nowadays with new schools opening up, and then like former Lewisville people being at Hebron or vice versa and stuff like that. When new schools open up, I'm sure it's happening a lot in Frisco where players are actually going from their school
same team 1 year
following and thinking they were going to go to, and now all of a sudden they're at a different high school. I think that kind of leads to some stuff too.
And then we even talked about how social media, like a sport like soccer, you got girls get into it through Instagram wars and Twitter wars and stuff like that you don't know what happened. She was talking noise on Instagram and now she can't say nothing. Like, I didn't even know about all that.
It's the kind of stuff that was probably just as present before social media existed, but now there's actually a platform to see it manifest firsthand.
Like some of the parents be knowing, I saw that message this morning when I woke up. I'm like, you on Instagram?
Sometimes it can be healthy rivalries too. It doesn't not have to be hate, and I guess some things that lead to that are just kind of like coaching changes and stuff like that. Like for instance, for Coppell, their cross country coach Nick Benton, used to run at Marcus for Steve Delaney as Marcus's head coach, and now they're going to be going against each other. And you look at like the Colony and Cleve Ryan facing off against Denton Ryan, Billy Ryan High School. Yeah. So just ties like that can lead to some rivalries.
Yeah, ties. And the way that the principals set the tone, because in McKinney, all the principals, Dr. Pearson, Mr. Bobby, and Ms. Gaskell, they're all friends. So that kind of sets the tone, where if you get an outlier that's like, hey, we're going to do this, like the Red Nation and Lion Nation I can already see it's about to get ratcheted up, because with Coach Shapers, it's a whole new dynamic. Like they're not even playing 7-on-7. They broke the league up because hey, it's a rivalry. We see y'all November 9th. So little dynamics like that kind of can ratchet or kind of just to kind of like quell it. But I think Crosstown Showdown is about to get ratcheted up with the new elements in the football one.
I think it's always a neat deal too if the rivalry has something at stake, and like you have with Lewisville and Marcus. I don't know. That's just there's some patronage and tradition to that I think is this makes it just a little bit more special. What would you say, Justin?
Even just a name like the Battle for the Axe or the Mound Showdown or Crosstown Showdown, stuff like that. Just kind of.
Yeah, they have shirts just for the damn game. It's like boom, but the thing is, every year is specific. It's like, so it's like you'll see somebody like come in, they'll have like the ones they won. Like they've been winning. They have different one every year with the score. It's like, man, you just go into Walmart and you a player. You gotta see that. It's like, you hang out with your buddies and you see 14, 13, 21. that has to be like kind of demoralizing. You just like you're not even thinking about football, but that's got to just like register. You see that one person walk around with the shirt on the other team. It's like some random parent that's kid's not even in the program no more. That just got to inspire you. What
do you, Justin? What would you say is just in your time covering Denton County athletics has been like the best rivalry that you've covered over the years?
Well, the Mound Showdown's pretty good, but especially.
That's a flower man
from Marcus. Does it have to be football? Because
no, it doesn't. Not at all.
Those two go at it in baseball. It's pretty intense.
Oh yeah,
they show out, and those are always super competitive series, and you can kind of see the dislike, and then the Battle for the Axe is pretty good too. I think I hate to go back to baseball on this one too, but one time Lewisville beat Marcus, or maybe it was vice versa, but all the students came out and stuck forks in the ground, and
wow. I like that.
So just little things like that, but definitely the Battle for the Axe and the Mound Showdown stick out to me.
Yeah, baseball is pretty intense too between McKinney. Yeah, well, somebody I don't know, the kid he get pulled a hamstring or something, And for Boyd, one of the kids from McKinney, "You're not hurt, get up!" And then the umpire takes off his mask and is about to kick him out.
I would say probably the best rivalry that I can recall, just in my my 9 years or whatnot covering this stuff. Plano Senior versus Plano East football. Just that one always seems to kind of stick when I think back to just noteworthy rivalries just over my time here. Overall, I mean, obviously there is just the history of it being like the first football rivalry between the first two high schools in Plano. Overall, though, like they've played 36 times, and Plano leads overall 18 to 17 to 1. They had a tie back in 1992. Yeah. But I mean, it's competitive in the sense that no team just dominates the other for 5-7 years.
Yeah, no 9-year stretches.
No 9-year stretches. In my so I've covered 9 football seasons over that span. Plano holds just a 5-4 edge over Plano East, so it's been relatively back and forth. You do have the added subplot of both of the head coaches for each team being brothers, with Jadon McCullough with Plano and Joey McCullough for Plano East. Not only that, but two brothers that have been around that rivalry for forever, just essentially. I mean, Joey McCullough played for the very first Plano East team to beat Plano back in 1985. So because of
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, because of the age difference, Jadon went to Plano, and then when East was, when East was built, then Joey went to Plano East, and so it's something that really does kind of run through there. I mean, they're both incredibly passionate about their alma mater, so I think that really does feed into the essence of the rivalry.
Well, you think about it, I think senior high and McKinney are slowly for them to be. I don't know, because of the oldest school, because it's not like that when they play Boyd or when Boyd plays East, but when senior high and McKinney high play, it's in football, it's starting to get more and more. It's like senior high has this mentality, hey, we're big brother, but then little brother keep bopping them on the head the last 2 years. It's like that wasn't supposed to happen. Did that happen?
That's interesting, because I was curious, because I think everybody's kind of got a different take on this. How important is it for a rivalry, for the results to be relatively back and forth?
When it comes out to different cities, I think it matters. But like Boyd and the McKinney McKinney can lose 20 times in a row. They still gonna be getting into it, but it makes it more intense for sure. Because covering one, it has nothing to do with this region. I was in East Texas, and I covered Lufkin and Nacogdoches. Lufkin won like over 20 years in a row, but once Nacogdoches beat them, they won 3 of the last 4. So it was a big deal. So even though they lost 20 something in a row, nobody's talking about that because Nacogdoches won the last 3 of the last 4 in football. So it goes like you need that animosity more than you need the results when it comes with in inner city. Is that the way you say it? Versus like when you have people from different cities, like you have Prosper and McKinney or Prosper and Plano, you need results because it's kind of like you think Denton Geyer was looking at people as rivals with there's no proximity.
Yeah, that's.
Now I bet you they looked at Allen as a rival. We know they do.
But did Allen look at Geyer as a rival? And that's actually a good question, because we all know the McKinney ISD rivalries, the Plano ISD.
Depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, with because we know even for the solo school, I think it's a little bit tougher for the solo school districts, just because you don't have that built-in school that's just a few minutes away.
Yeah. Possible about to have some rivalries. I don't know which one. They'll have one with either Plano, either the Plano East or Plano, or Boyd or McKinney. I put money on it.
Yeah, but is it a rivalry, or are they just gonna going at each other for 2 years and then forget about it? Like, for instance, you talk about the solo schools. Like, I think it's been probably 4 years since Carroll and Coppell were in the same district, but I would definitely still say Carroll and Coppell are rivals, even though they might not have played in 3 or 4 years. But if they play in 2 years, they're going to hate each other and they're going to go at it.
It's not like you know about that person.
I know a little bit about that.
Because I think schools even though Little Elm, Lake Dallas, and the Colony are kind of on their own, at least as far as with the Colony being the only 5A school in Lewisville ISD, but it seems like those 3 kind of acknowledge one another as being rivals just due to the proximity and whatnot. Here's where I was just kind of getting this. Like, Allen. Does Allen have a rival in football?
I don't know.
I was trying to think. It's because you can't because they share the district with with Plano ISD, McKinney ISD, and the like, but they've lorded over those schools for so long. They haven't lost to a Plano ISD school since 2005. Yeah. Most of the time, those games frankly aren't that competitive.
I don't think
say the Plano schools are their rivals.
And I don't think they've ever lost to McKinney. I didn't look that up. Unless McKinney could have beat them early 2000s. Boyd's never beaten them. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, I know Boyd hasn't. Yeah,
and North's never beaten them. So if they do, they have like a 95% win total against MISD if they have lost one. So it's kind of that goes back to results.
Because I was thinking of just like some potential, and I might need to do a column on this at some point. Just like who would be the closest thing to a rival for a program like Allen, and I almost wonder if it has to be almost like a kind of like a Lakers Celtics thing, where it's just a team that you only see during the postseason.
Or would it be?
Would that be like South Lake or something?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
South Lake's a good.
South Lake, two teams that can argue about quote being the best program in Texas.
Here were the three that I kind of came up with. You have South Lake, who actually is one of the few schools that has a significant head-to-head advantage against Allen. Allen is only 2-5 against South Lake Carroll, but they haven't played since 2013. And it's like because they would schedule occasional non-district games against one another, but they just haven't crossed paths in the playoffs during that span. Part of it's because of the Division I, Division II thing. I know South Lake's been D2, a few times.
What about Lake Travis?
I don't think they played each other enough. I think last year last year might have actually been the first time that they played. It was in the state title game, yeah. Here's another one. DeSoto. DeSoto's one that, like,
they own DeSoto, though.
That's the thing.
I think DeSoto looks at Allen as a rival, but Allen don't look at them because DeSoto.
A lot of these can depend.
Because I know people that go to DeSoto or went to DeSoto, and people that do in their media, and it's like, as long as we don't play Allen, we'll be all right. So they're definitely on Allen's radar. I mean, Allen's on their radar, but I don't think DeSoto's on Allen.
Because their rivalry is, if you want to call it that, here's how it was framed. So they played each other 4 straight years in the playoffs from 2012 to 2015. Allen won all 4, but those last 3 games were all decided by a combined 11 points. They were really, really competitive to the point where you never really, Allen won, but it wasn't by like the sequence of events that led to all 3 of those wins weren't events that led you thinking like, oh, Allen's just head and shoulders above this DeSoto team.
How come the Allen fan base, like when a game is close, something's wrong. Like that other team didn't. It's good. It's like, well, we just didn't play good. It's like
it's just fans in general. It's just fans in general, man.
But so much of it is which perspective you're looking at. You look at like college, like who's Texas Tech's rival? Maybe this will Texas, but Texas would say, no, you're not a rival.
Yeah.
Oklahoma and A&M are a rival. So there's a little big brother, little brother thing in a lot of these rivalries.
Because that is, I was just curious because those Allen DeSoto games, those are just like pound for pound some of the most like intense, exciting games that I've seen just covering high school football. But at the same time, one team won all 4 of them. So how much do you weigh that versus just how competitive they were?
I would still say it's a rivalry, and I like kind of those rivalries that just kind of get born out of circumstance.
Oh yeah,
I remember the Hebron and Carroll girls soccer teams. It seemed like they were playing.
That's when results come in because I know South Lake, they took out boys volleyball. They took out both boys and girls soccer. So if they win one of those or something, the rivalry. But in soccer, it's kind of they've had shootouts back-to-back years. Last year, South Lake won. This year, Boyd won. So if they see each other again next year, and it's always in the first round. And I don't know this year was South Lake ranked this year. I know last year they both were.
Soccer?
Yeah.
I don't know if they were.
I know last year they were both in the top 10 of the state, and they're playing the first round of the playoffs. That's like absurd. And then it comes down to shootouts where anything can happen. So it kind of like, as you say, by circumstance. But now they can't see each other until like regionals, right? Because of the being in Region 2 and Region 1.
Yeah, it would be. Well, it wouldn't be till
state semifinals.
Because 2 of those Allen DeSoto games were in the state semifinals, and the other 2 were in the second round, and that's just because of the way the brackets shook out. So, you did have like just major stakes. So I was just curious where y'all kind of stood on, because that's such a unique circumstance, because those were like arguably,
that's when you need results, because like I said, you think people like they couldn't. They're like, okay, DeSoto's over there, but they're not like, oh, it's DeSoto, where DeSoto's like, hopefully somebody get Allen before we get up there.
Like, it wouldn't shock me to learn that Claude Mathis, who is DeSoto's old head coach, still has like night terrors about Kyler Murray on occasion.
Well, you can look at it the other way. It's the same way DeSoto looks at Allen. You can say Coppell looks at DeSoto because they were losing. Coppell would lose to DeSoto before those Allen games would happen for 3 or 4 years in a row.
So I mentioned Southlake and mentioned DeSoto's potential rivals for Allen. Another team that you can maybe make the best case just because of just some of the factors that we've talked about. But Euless Trinity is another interesting one. Euless Trinity, Allen is 5-3 all time against Euless Trinity. They've played each other 8 times since 2008. So there's at least enough frequency there. I do think frequency matters.
Frequency and when it comes to football, how many chips you got? Like that's a legit rivalry because I know they can't play the state title game, but they've each got multiple state titles in like recent last 5-6 years. So it's not like, well, they got that one back in 2004 and they just won last year. Like they've been win the last 5 years. That's definitely
It's been a minute for Trinity though.
So back in 2000, was it the Brandon Carter team, I think?
Oh, it's been over 5 years.
Did that team end up winning state though? I don't think they did.
Or did they lose to Pearland?
that team
I don't know. I didn't come to the podcast expecting to have to know that.
Solve it real quick though.
But at least so they've played each other 8 times, since 2008. 6 of those games have been in the playoffs. So there is that that added importance in the
that definitely makes a big deal versus playing in week 2 or kick off the season where anything can happen. And
2010. They did win it.
2010. Yeah. There you go. So it was, and the games have always been competitive for the most part. Even this past season where they played each other in the state quarterfinals, and it was the most lopsided of any game between the two. Allen won, I believe, 41-20. But even that game was kind of slightly marred by some controversies regarding the officiating and whatnot that actually might have jump-started the initiative to get instant replay implemented for the state championship games this coming season. I think you can make a case that Allen's 5-3 against Trinity, and like I said, there's been enough back and forth there to where you could make a case that as tough as it is to pin down a rival for a program like Allen, that Trinity might at least check off enough boxes to where that's feasible. Well, I guess, is there anything else that they're missing? Anything else y'all wanted to add on the subject, or that just about do it? So that's some student section and some high school rivalry talk. So hey folks, that'll do it for this edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. Kendrick, Justin, appreciate y'all for tagging along. We'll be back on Monday with some more year in review. We'll check off what do we have on the docket for Monday. Frisco, McKinney, and Allen I think we have scheduled for Monday. So we will take a look back at the athletics years that was for those markets. So in the meantime, folks, hey, y'all enjoy the rest of your week. We will talk to y'all later. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast, brought to you by Yield Butcher Shop, a meat market and burger joint based in Plano. It's summertime, folks. The temperatures are going to start heating up, and what a better way to break into that summer heat than to break out the grill, do some barbecuing. Well, guess what? Yield Butcher Shop has you covered. They can help you with everything from catering, grilling, barbecuing, or any special occasion, serving the finest cuts of meat from everyday to exotics. They are located at 811 East 15th Street in Plano, open Tuesday through Saturday. A smoking good time since 1974, Ye Olde Butcher Shop.